Fraser Douglas, the avid tent camper. In this video, I want to talk about mid-sized tents. That is, 4 and 6 person tents.
In my opinion, 4 and 6 person or mid-sized tents are the best choices for modern tent camping families. They provide good protection from dirt, rain, wind, mosquitoes, bugs, and other critters. They can be pitched in almost any campsite. They require little setup effort, and they resist moderately strong wind. They are small enough to pack into most vehicles, carry to most walk-in campsites, and quickly set up on most tent pads. They're easy to dry when wet and easy to strike when the time comes to move on. Yet these tents are large enough to provide adequate comfort for multi-day fixed or base camps. 4-person tents typically measure about 8 feet wide by 9 feet long by 5.5 feet high and have about 70 square feet of floor space. Although this size would be cramped for 4 people, it is perfect for couples, including those with a small child or dog. These tents facilitate mobility because they typically weigh less than 13 pounds and are easy to set up and strike. Some have 1 door, while others have 2 doors, but the number of doors is relatively unimportant. Families with older children should consider buying 2 of these 4-person tents rather than a large family tent. 6-person tents may be necessary for families with more than 1 small child, but are a little more difficult to pack, heavier, more difficult to set up, more difficult to strike, and more difficult to dry. Typically, they measure about 9 feet wide by 10 feet long by 6 feet high and have about 90 square feet of floor space. They typically weigh between 10 and 15 pounds. As previously discussed in the small tent video, consumers should avoid cheap generic tents sold in discount department and sporting goods stores because they typically have a short lifetime. Instead, look for tents made by good quality makers such as REI, Marmot, Sierra Designs, Mountain Hardware, LL Bean, and the North Face. A few of these good quality tents can be found in local outfitting stores, but most have to be ordered from online retailers such as REI, Backcountry.com, and Campmore. Tunnel tents would be my first choice for warm weather camping trips. They are very well ventilated, long enough for tall people, and tall enough to stand and move around. Tunnel tents have been popular in Europe for many years, but have not been widely accepted here in the United States. Some good examples available from European retailers include this Hilleberg Nallo, the Vango Drummond, the lower profile Vango Omega, the Outwell Newgate, and the Coleman Galileo. All of these tents are available in 4 and 6-person sizes. Here in the United States, the best option is the REI Kingdom shown in this photo. It is also available in the 4 and 6-person sizes. A-frame tents are also good choices for hot and rainy weather because they are exceptionally well ventilated and long enough to accommodate tall campers. They were very popular in the United States 50 years ago, but have gradually been replaced by other styles. The primary disadvantage of these A-frame tents is their steep, sloped walls that reduce interior living space and overall comfort. The best example of this design is a Eureka Timberline that is available as a 4-person and as a 6-person tent. Family dome tents with rain hoods rather than full coverage rain flies are great choices for modern tent camping families because they are economically priced and exceptionally easy to set up and strike. They have an inner mesh canopy that is supported by 2 long flexible poles that run diagonally across the tent and covered by a waterproof rain hood that covers the top and sides of the tent, but not the front and back. They are good all-weather choices because they are warmer than tunnel and A-frame tents in cool weather, but better ventilated than backpacking dome tents. One example of this type of tent is the REI Camp Dome. Other examples of this design include the Big Agnes Big House, the Kelty Trail Ridge, the Eureka Sunrise, and the Coleman Sun Dome. All 5 of these tents are available in both 4- and 6-person sizes. Backpacking dome tents are best suited for cool weather camping because their full coverage rain flies hold in heat, but these tents can be a little hot in the summer months. Like family dome tents, these backpacking dome tents have an inner mesh canopy that is supported by 2 long flexible poles that arch over and across the tent canopy. But they also have a large rain hood that completely covers the tent canopy and creates vestibules in the front of each door. These vestibules are used by backpackers for storing boots and packs, but have few uses for most family campers. One example of this tent is the Marmot limestone shown in this photo without its rain fly, and shown in this photo with its full coverage rain fly. Other examples of this design include the Marmot Limelight, the REI Base Camp, and the Kelty Grand Mesa. Expedition or 4-season dome tents such as this, the North Face Bastion, are fine for mountain climbing and cold weather camping, but are poor choices for family tent camping vacations because they are very expensive and very warm. Cabin tents is a frequently cited category of tents, but the definition of the term cabin tents has changed considerably over the past 30 years. Traditionally, a cabin tent was defined as a large, non-freestanding wall tent that had a high center ridge supported by 2 rigid vertical support poles, a roof that gently sloped away from the ridge on each side, and sidewalls that are at least 5 feet high. But now many people use the term cabin tent to refer to any large tent that has high vertical sidewalls. Today, very few companies make a real cabin tent, but this Kodiak Canvas Cabin 6 sold by Cabela's is an excellent example. This Kodiak Flex Bow tent is a modified cabin tent. Instant tents, or instant cabins, have recently emerged as a popular tent style. Although they are called cabin tents, I contend that they are actually umbrella tents because they have 4 or 6 corner poles that bend over the roof and converge at a high center peak, just like the old umbrella tents. They were initially introduced by Coleman, but are now sold by other makers. Although these tents are frequently seen in public campgrounds, I suggest that you read reviews before purchasing one. This Pahaki Green Mountain tent is also called a cabin tent, but I contend that it should be called a modified umbrella tent because its structure is more closely related to the old umbrella tents than to the old cabin tents. This Eureka Copper Canyon would be another example of a modified umbrella tent. Bell tents, or Sibley tents, are tall, round, or square tents that evolved from old military tents that, in turn, evolved from teepees. They were very popular during the early 1900s and are still made by Cabela's and a few other makers. Although they are occasionally seen in public campgrounds, they are expensive, heavy, and require considerable packing space. Finally, let me mention campfire tents or Baker tents. They are very popular with historical reenactors, but would be poor choices for family camping vacations because they provide minimal protection from insects, critters, and the weather.
Well, I hope this video gives you a little more information about tent options. For more information, please visit my website, www.basictentcamping.com, and read my recent book titled Basic Tent Camping. Remember, take more trips, travel further, visit more attractions, and save money. Go tent camping.